everyone. This is me, Anjali Kocher. Welcome to Kahaniyaan by Tookwings blog. So, today we had a conversation with Miss Shreya Iyer, who is a professional expert from Alyve Health. That conversation was all about body positivity, body image issues. We discussed what is body image, how to DIY and sort your body image issues, when to seek professional help, how do you change the perspective about your own body, what can fitness mean to different people, but how can we come to something that is actually helpful. So we discussed a lot of amazing points about body image and positivity in general, but again this conversation was not just about that. This was all about importance of mindfulness, importance of self compassion, importance of something which is very important in our life, but we leave it. We just forget about it. But again, this conversation will make you remember that it is very important to love yourself, to be compassionate to yourself, and forget yourself for mm, things we just keep harming ourselves for. But yeah, so I would say that have a look at this conversation, this podcast, and I know you are going to learn amazing things from here. Hi Shreya, welcome to Kahaniyaan by Tookwings blog. How are you?
Anjali, thank you so much for having me here today. I am having a good day so far. How about you?
I'm amazing as well. So, today we are going to talk a lot about mindfulness, mental health, and body image issues. But, before we get onto those topics, we'll start our conversation with your story. At Tookwings at Kahania, our first question is always about your story. One story that you would like to share with all of us. So, yeah, floor is all yours.
Okay, that's great, Anjali. So my story, I think a big part of my childhood was I was a competitive athlete, right? So I was in the sport of rowing for almost 10 long years, and uh, whole childhood was based on training, on performing well, on being an athlete. That was a big part of my identity. Of course, while I always took care of the physical aspect of things, right? Keeping my endurance, my strength, all of those components important for the sport, I realized a big missing piece for me was not having structured support on how to manage my mental health. So, how I'm thinking, how I'm acting, how I'm emoting, not only in my sport, but even as a teenager and then an adult, in college and going forward. And based on that, right, this is a story I would love to share with all the listeners here is uh, after my college, I taken a gap year to pursue my sport in full swing. And due to some reasons that year, the tournament that I was supposed to go for, right, which should basically be the fruition of all my efforts, my partner and I, we weren't able to go for that tournament. And after that, I went through such a difficult mental phase, right? Because when all your identity is tied to something, and when that is not happening, there is a sense of vacuum. And then I realized that, you know what? No, I think psychological support is very important. I went on to do my master's in sport and exercise psychology. So, understanding the mind body integration. And yes, since then, since the last 4 to 5 years, I have been working with athletes as well as individuals from the corporate space to work on their mind and body connection. Currently, I lead the Wellbeing and Experts team at Alyve Health, where we work with individuals on a holistic fashion to increase and improve their overall well-being.
Amazing. So, as you also mentioned that you identified that there is something wrong and you needed that psychological help. But, how So a lot of us misidentifying that part only. We think that it is normal to feel that way and ho jayega, and we just take things for granted. So my first question to you would be about how to identify that you really need to go to a therapist or seek mental health support.
Correct. So I would, split this into two parts, Anjali. One is, of course, when you need professional support, right? And then there are symptoms for that. Just like when we know we need to go to a doctor when we have a flu, right? We have a runny nose or we have a sore throat, and there are symptoms for that. But we also take care of our physical health, right? Proactively. We
Hmm.
try the right foods, sleep on time, work out in some way. So there's a proactive part and there's also a reactive part. Okay. So for the proactive part, to ever identify if you are going through symptoms, the first and foremost thing is taking out time to be aware of who you are. Right? All of us are so busy in what we do as opposed to who we are. So
Hmm.
being very, very in tune with what your values are, what your purpose is, who you are beyond identities or achievements, taking out that time for self awareness, and then taking out that time to reflect on your thoughts, on your emotions. How will you identify if there are symptoms if you don't take that pause to attune with yourself, right?
Hmm.
So, first is awareness, so that you know even what is your homeostasis, right?
Hmm.
B is, constant reflection, so that
Hmm.
you're understanding if there is something that needs to be addressed, either it's in the workplace or in your family or within yourself. And then for the reactive part, now based on, let's say, the specific mental health condition we're talking about, let's just take anxiety. Then the most, common symptom for that is a lot of cognitive worry about the future. Okay.
Hmm.
And that's a repetitive worry. What if this doesn't happen? What if I don't do that? Oh my God, what if people judge me? Right. So there's a constant worry and then physiological symptoms as well. Okay. Let's take another condition. Let's say a body image issue, right? Then it's constant preoccupation with how your body is looking, in so much so that you are afraid of going to social situations.
Hmm.
So that's a symptom. So based on the conditions, there are different symptoms, but like the first two steps is very important. Self-awareness and the intention to reflect. Only then you can make a change.
Absolutely true. So, how do is there a particular time that people should dedicate to themselves, maybe early in the morning or something like that, or any time throughout the day would work?
Hmm. That's a great question. I would generally, there is no fixed time, right? Because of course it's very unique to each person.
Mm.
I would, in fact, say if there are like three pockets, like one is in the morning before you start your day, one is in the middle of the day when you need to take that pause so that you don't get overwhelmed, and one is right at the end of the day before you go to sleep. I think these would be three pockets of time where you can spend in reflection and self awareness.
Right. And what should a person do in that particular time or the three pockets you mentioned?
Yeah. So the morning would be more on, setting the tone for the day. Okay.
Mm.
Because when we start our mornings right, there is a ripple effect. So that would be more on how I want the day to look like. What do I have planned? What is it in my journey that I want to accomplish today? So, morning, and generally some form of contemplative practice like mindfulness or meditation or journaling is obviously a very, very powerful tool. Okay, so that's what I would recommend in the first pocket. The second pocket is just to reset, right? Where maybe you're choosing one activity that you enjoy doing. Of course,
Mm.
you have breath work that is very powerful. Maybe it's going out for a walk. Maybe it's picking up the call and talking to a friend, listening to music. So just take that second pause to reset. Right?
Mm.
And the last bit, and I love this exercise, I also do it in my own practice, is before sleeping, I do this 3, 2, 1 exercise, or we can even call it rose, thorn, and bud. What that stands for is reflect on the day. What are the roses of the day, which means what are the things that went well. Okay, so
Hmm.
we are inculcating that positivity bias. A lot of the times, if you notice, right, even if we had 10 things that went well, but that one comment that someone made or that one mistake a friend did, we go back home and we only think about the negative thing. And that's
Hmm.
because our brains are attuned to something which is called a negativity bias. We have that. Right? And I'll give you the evolutionary mechanism behind it, but maybe that we can talk about later. So, coming back to the steps. So, three roses, two thorns, basically two challenges maybe you faced in the day, and one bud. One bud is something you're hoping or looking forward to towards the next. So, that's a small thing you can do in the last pocket that I spoke about.
Hmm. 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 Amazing. So as you also spoke about body image issues, and a lot of us face those problems. So I think as you mentioned about the comments people make, and one comment that may stick to you for life. So how do we make sure that someone who is facing from a body image issue, how do they tackle with that? And how do they uh, positively self talk to themselves that they don't face it again, if they have to DIY it.
Okay, right. So one thing is, Anjali, I would want to say, when we do deal with conditions or anything, right? Although there are certain techniques and fixes and DIYs, as you said, but it does take some time, right? So there is some deeper work that we need to be doing, because any perception that we have builds over all the years that we're living. Okay.
Hmm.
That being said, so let's first start with what is body image and what are issues that people face, right? So, as simply put, it's the thoughts or the perceptions you have about your outward appearance, okay,
Hmm.
and the emotions associated with it, right? And in our society, in our culture, the messaging that has been circulated, right? Or the social groups that we are embedded in when we are growing up, and
Hmm.
our own beliefs about what is beauty, what is normative beauty. So there are three layers of influence on how we perceive our own body image.
Hmm.
Um, Now, of course, like I'll just give some examples. Maybe people have heard this, right? And maybe everyone who's listening in, y'all can keep a note or a tally of how many times you have faced something like this. Okay.
Hmm.
So let's say you've gone to a party after a very long time, and the first thing someone tells you is, "Oh my God, you have lost so much weight," or "Oh my God, you've put on so much weight." Okay, so the
Hmm.
first thing they're noticing about you is your appearance, right? Or, in our media, although now there have been some regulations around it, there were a lot of these fair and lovely creams, right?
Hmm.
Fairness creams which want to change your complexion, or anything which is related to changing your complexion, right? Or so you've seen all these beauty standards, and I did this wonderful experiment, Anjali, that on Google, I just typed beauty, and all of you can try this out right now. On Google, when you type beautiful or beauty, right, on the Google image search, it'll just be very, very conventional forms of beauty and a lot of makeup products,
Hmm.
and of a person who is in makeup. Okay, now again, I am 100% makeup is, if it makes you feel good, then I'm not against it at all, but the whole aspect of natural beauty is being lost, right? Where it's all about Instagram filters of external applications and these different messages in our society and our culture, that you are not enough just the way you are. You need to
Hmm.
change something to fit. to fit
Right.
to the ideal beauty standards, right? And when we grow up with these messages over time, we start to equate our own self worth with how our body looks.
Hmm.
So, how we feel about ourselves, how we love ourselves, whether we feel confident or not, is all dependent on a number on the scale.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, and that's so hard to
Hmm.
live a life like that, right? Where every day you're just worried about, okay, have you put on 200 grams? And if yes, which means today is going to be a bad day, right?
Hmm.
Or if you become slightly tan, for
Hmm.
example, then it means you're not confident to go outside. So for there are intensities of these feelings, but I know with the number of clients I've worked with, right, everyone comes in with, I'm not happy with the way I look, I'm fat, I want to change this about myself, I want to feel more confident, and I get it, right? But there is this whole idea of, how our appearance determines whether we love ourselves or not, right? And that is where the body image issue comes from. Okay, so Anjali, I'll just take a pause here. I feel like I've what do you think? Do you think I explained it? Any other questions on top of that?
No, I think that's absolutely true. And in my experience, that also comes from most of the people I meet and I talk to, and my personal experience as well. This all comes from the, society we live in, and, especially growing up, how our parents or our relatives perceive us, as you mentioned about the party example, right? So it still happens with a lot of us that we go to a party and we get the first comment is always about the weight or the skin or the hair. So yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure a lot of us would
Yeah.
relate to this. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I think the question you asked me is how can someone deal with this?
Hmm.
And now, again, this will be a multi layered answer. We'll start with the thing that is most outside our control because I said even the media, the culture, and our social groups play a role, right? So, talking about that, of course, there needs to be a narrative change
Hmm.
on a macroscopic level, which I think is happening, right? There are all these adverts that big companies do, right? Where they're actually promoting body diversity and they're showing that different bodies are able, right? And different bodies, no matter how they look, they can still be very, very competent, they can still be very, very functional, right? So on a broader level, you can see some changes. And, for example, your platform is trying to promote this message, right? That
Hmm.
itself is such a big step where to change ideologies at a societal level, there needs to be narratives and conversation, and the discourse has to change, right? And people who are struggling with body image issues, I would invite you all that be a part of those conversations, right?
Hmm.
Try to find those groups that promote body inclusivity.
Hmm.
Okay. And the more you expose yourself to these medias, to these narratives, you will see that the subconscious change happens. So
Hmm.
that's number one. Be
Hmm.
around people who also advocate for this,
Hmm.
right? If you know that someone in your group, very close group, maybe it's a friend or a family member, says these hurtful things, right? It's okay to, again, very take a pause, understand maybe why those comments hurt you, and communicate about it. Right? A lot of time we just shrug it under the rug or we are like, it's commonplace. So I'd like to share with you that even in school, for example, and this is my own journey that I did face, some fat shaming in
Hmm.
I wouldn't say extreme bullying format, but those subtleties that are there, right?
Hmm.
That whole stigmatization was there for me. So then when I went into college, I again, it was also connected to my sport, but I did go into this whole phase of very, very rigid dieting,
Hmm.
right? Where I'm very specific on what I'm eating. And everyone knew that Shreya Sundays means a cheat meal. That's the
Hmm.
quote unquote cheat, and that's the only time when I could have a cheat meal. Otherwise, every day I'm following, a nutritional diet to the T. Okay. And of course, it was difficult. It was not easy for me to manage something that's stringent. But it at that time it did help me because I did end up losing weight, right? So I was happy. But then, of course, as my viewpoints changed, I realized that one is I want to change my body from the outside, but
Hmm.
second is I want to change my body from the inside, right? To be the healthiest possible self, to be as functional as I can be, right? And it took me time again to change this discourse and love my body for the way it is.
Hmm.
So now how can people do this is a first identify the beliefs that you have about your own body, right?
Hmm.
Is it very, very deep rooted where you see that your self worth is tied to your body appearance? Okay. Identify the exact thoughts that come up, right? Something that helps is keeping a thought diary, right? So, where you're writing down. Okay. Again, why this is important is sometimes we have so many thoughts. It's like a constant, like we have those speakers or those anchors who are talking now. We have that anchor in our head who goes
Hmm.
on talking. There is some narrative. Oh my
Right.
God, you're not looking good. This dress you're wearing is not suiting you. You have such big arms. Why are you wearing that? And some people have this constant narrative going on, right?
Hmm.
Only when we can put it down and write it across, then we can create a detachment from that voice.
Hmm.
Otherwise, that voice is always inside us.
Hmm.
Like I said, to change, you need to catch it, you need to identify it. So I would say, write down those exact thoughts that are coming up, okay? And the emotions that come up with those thoughts, right? So I feel like, okay, why don't you tell me what are some emotions that you think individuals with these thoughts would have?
Probably they don't feel good about themselves,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So, looking into the mirror can be
Mhm.
difficult sometimes, and facing, as you mentioned, also that facing social situations can be overwhelming.
Right.
Maybe thinking again and again about that one comment that may pop up when they go out and meet somebody.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
insecurity. Right.
Exactly, right? So there's insecurity, there's apprehension to go out in
Hmm.
social situation. I think there's also a lot of shame.
Hmm.
People feel a lot of shame to be in these social situations,
Hmm.
or people feel a lot of anxiety. Right? So I
Hmm.
think naming these emotion words again for people to identify the emotion they're feeling. Maybe sometimes people are feeling guilt, right?
Hmm.
That guilty that yesterday they had that big slice of pizza, and then I'm so overwhelmed with guilt, and then that leads me to procrastinating on doing any action for my health. Right?
Hmm.
Or sometimes we feel anger, like, why am I like this? Why
Hmm.
can I be blessed with genes so that I could look like, let's say, some very one of these famous celebrities that everyone looks up to, right?
Hmm.
So also identifying and labeling the exact emotions we're getting, right? That helps us to get a more nuanced understanding. Like, what are we feeling and why is this important to us? Okay. The second step is a little bit questioning your beliefs. Okay. Now, what I mean by that is, let's say someone has a belief that I must look a certain way. Okay, so that's a rigid demand that we have from ourselves, that I must, no matter what, look this way. Okay, so then we need to ask ourselves, like, who said that you must look like this?
Hmm.
Did anyone tell you that you must look that way? Right?
Hmm.
And is it helpful for you if you think that way? If you're thinking that you must feel this way, is it
Hmm.
helping you? Is it kind for you? Is it needed? Right? And
Hmm.
then we try to reframe that thought. Okay,
Hmm.
so yes, I would like to look that way, but even if I'm not, it's okay. It's
Hmm.
okay. I'm okay just the way I am.
Hmm.
Or sometimes people think that if I don't if I don't look good in that dress, for example, then everyone is going to be judging me.
Hmm.
Everyone, if I go to the party, everyone is going to be judging me. Okay.
Hmm.
So we sometimes have this error of mind reading. Right?
Hmm.
We think we can read other people's minds.
Yeah.
So we are like, everyone is going to judge me. But we don't know whether people are judging you. Right. So trying to like really think about, okay, is that really the truth? Will people really judge me? Even if they judge me, like, so what? It's not the worst thing.
Hmm.
Let them judge me, but let me see what I can do. So for the listeners and Anjali, for you also, basically this whole aspect that I'm talking about, it falls under cognitive behavioral therapy, right? Where we work on changing your thoughts, right?
Hmm.
By identifying the thoughts, by disputing the thoughts, right? Like how I just did. Is this really true? Is this helpful? Is this needed? Right?
Hmm.
And then we reframe the thought.
Hmm.
Okay, so this is one thing that people can do. Of course, you need to work one on one, right? It's very, very in depth. I'm giving an overview of this,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
And very important is showing yourself like some self-compassion. You
Hmm.
know, self-compassion basically means, and this I've seen so many times, if someone's friend is saying the same thing, I hate myself, I'm such a loser, I'm so stupid, then as a good friend, we'll tell them that, you know, no, you are not. You are doing this. I believe in you. You'll
Hmm.
be fine. And then you give them constructive feedback. Let's try ABC and we can change this, right? So we are able to show compassion to others.
Hmm.
But the moment it changes to showing compassion to ourselves, it's so hard, right?
Hmm.
So trying to notice what you tell others and using the same voice with yourself
Hmm.
to be self compassionate. And it's a habit we need to build where we can change that language to be more self compassionate. Okay.
Hmm.
And most importantly, our body is more than how it looks like. It's
Hmm.
more about what the body can do.
Hmm.
So let's say today you walked 10 minutes, right?
Hmm.
Celebrate that your body could do that, right?
Hmm.
Or like you sat whole day, you did your work. Then if you're a mother or a father, you took care of your children.
Hmm.
Whatever you did with your body, right? So shift the perspective from appearance based to function based.
Hmm.
Rather than my thighs are so big, my thighs help me walk every day.
Hmm.
Right? Rather than, let's say, for a lot of mothers after giving delivery, they think my tummy,
Hmm.
it's saggy. I don't like the way it looks.
Hmm.
Switch the perspective. It gave birth to life. I mean, you know, and to be intentional and to be mindful about the voice you're using, moving from performance to function based thinking.
Right. So, absolutely true. But again, to build that self-talk, to build that positive self-talk is, is something that takes time. So, how do we, are there any suggestions on how do we, come to that positive self-talk and self-compassion and eventually get there?
Yeah. Again, like anything, right? There is no one-time magic solution.
Hmm.
Mhm. It is about consistent practice, yeah, and building habits around it that can change the way you feel, right? So the way you would have to do it, for example, if as a counselor, if I gave one of my clients this exercise of identifying the thoughts and then identifying the mental errors that you're having, right? Like I said, are you mind reading or
Hmm.
are you having rigid demands from yourself, right? So then we do that daily journaling, for example.
Hmm.
Identify what thoughts you had, then what was the reaction. So we
Hmm.
do that over some time.
Hmm.
And then we learn how to change it.
Hmm. Right. So, as you also mentioned about the 3 to 1 exercise that you do, and that you may suggest to other people as well, right? But are there any other simple exercises that someone can do who is dealing with such issues to, just remain positive in that situation?
Yeah. Okay. So again, like one thing is sometimes, right, this word positive that we use now, sometimes it's not possible to be positive all the time. Like why I come is from that space is when you're feeling anxious or when you're feeling angry or whatever you're feeling, right? First step is always acceptance, right? That's the philosophy I follow. There is no problem in having difficult emotions and thoughts. We need to accept it
Mm.
first. Okay. There are a lot of mindfulness exercises as well that can help. So, for example, for body image issues, something that I recommend is called our compassionate body scan. So,
Mm.
how the exercise goes is it's a 5-minute visualization where when the so it's a guided meditation that we do where we take the meditator through every part on their body, right? We start from the toes, okay, and maybe like something would be like notice the way your feet is feeling
Mm.
and give thanks to your feet for doing this to you, right? And then we move up towards the calves and notice your calves and notice something that you like about it, right? And then we move through every part of the body. Okay. And then it's very, very helpful. It's called, this is called a compassionate body scan exercise that can help you, let's say, rework these patterns that we want to change. This is
Mm.
that you can. Another thing is, sometimes we always feel that thoughts change actions.
Mm.
It's also the other way around that actions can change your thoughts.
Mm.
Okay. So the moment you start doing something because you love your body, okay, just
Mm.
as an example, if you can move for 10 minutes
Mm.
and you can tell yourself, I move today because I love my body, I want to do the best for it
Mm.
slowly make a change in that belief, right? Or if I ate good food,
Mm.
right? Because I want to take care of my body. So it's coming from a place of love of the body, right?
Mm.
A lot of people exercise and eat right because they want to change something in their body. But what
Mm.
I say is compassion will help you love your body more and see more changes rather than fear. So work from a compassion oriented stance, right? So it's about repeating these statements and also engaging in these actions that can change the way you look at things.
Hmm. I think it's all about the perception. As you mentioned, we perceive that we have to change that number in the weighing scale, but probably we need to think the other way around and perceive it as we need to be healthier and think it like that way, because there is always this conflict that is going on, about body positivity as well. This conflict of to remain as you are or to change the way you are, there is always this conflict that is going on, but changing the perception may help, as you mentioned, right?
Yes, yes. Now, this is a very important point you brought up. Now, there is this concept which is called health at every size, right? Which basically means that, I mean, as it means that irrespective of the size that you are,
Mm.
right, you can still be healthy. Now I just want to again clarify what I mean by that. Of course, having excessive weight or having excessive fat, yes, there are some health implications. Okay. But then there are also a lot of individuals who may not have excessive weight or fat, but they still don't move at all,
Hmm.
or they have very, very unhealthy patterns. And there can be other health implications, right? Maybe pressure issues or sugar issues or whatever it may be.
Hmm.
So, why body acceptance helps, or this whole narrative about because then people who don't fit the size conformity,
Hmm.
they know that they are empowered to make a change. Otherwise, they're always shamed in the society,
Hmm.
right? So, valuing health with healthy behaviors rather than only how you look is very, very important.
Hmm. Absolutely. So, as we talk about body image issues, and we covered a lot of points here as well. So, do you, as you work with a lot of corporates as well, I know like athletes may have such questions already, but again, if we talk about the corporates, do you get these questions from corporates as well? And if you would like to share a couple of stories or examples, without naming them, of course, but you would like to share a couple of examples which may help people to relate and then understand, how it may help them.
Of course. So, maybe not very, very specifically just body image, but a lot of clients come to me and talk about, how they want to. Like the first goal is reduce weight, be
Hmm.
healthy, reduce weight. Okay.
Hmm.
So I actually remember this client I had. They were actually leading a big team in the organization they worked at. And so first session is always start with tiny changes that you can make, right? Like set up a step goal, set up some movement and nutrition habits that you want. Okay. Then what we started doing is move to this identity based change. And what I mean by that is we had a lot of discussions around, okay, beyond weight, why was this important for you? Yeah, and then they came up with a lot of different, we came up with a lot of different, after that introspection reflection,
Hmm.
that as a leader in the organization, if they have healthy habits and they show they care for their bodies, then they can create a positive impact
Hmm.
their organization. So, everyone else is going to look up to them, right? And they also had a family.
Hmm.
So being a positive role model for their child, for their spouse, right? And also then all of this is being linked to their identity, where so then it started becoming more about changing their whole identity, changing their whole lifestyle, rather than only that weight on the scale.
Hmm.
And we do this exercise called identity mapping. We do this exercise called five eyes, right? To sort of figure out what is that core reason why this is important, rather than it just being about changing the way your body looks. And
Hmm.
it really helped. It really helped where they saw positive changes. And again, mindsets don't change just like that. It took time, and it was about reinforcing that, and again, in conversations with me, we could reinforce that. And it sort of led to ingraining healthier habits in that.
Hmm. Right. So, when is the right time to move from DIY to seeking professional help?
Yeah. Um, First is whenever you feel like it.
Hmm.
If anyone has ever thought ki, what, I just want to talk to someone about it,
Hmm.
and I'm just feeling lost, and I just whenever you feel like you need some help, don't hesitate and seek out that professional. Okay?
Hmm.
Again now, but if you want to look at it at a more protocol level, okay,
Hmm.
for body image issues, it's some symptoms are constant preoccupation with the way you look, spending hours on trying to fix something about your appearance, right?
Hmm.
Or feeling a lot of anxiety, not being able to go to social situations, having a lot of self criticism, lot of self hate, to such a point that it starts interrupting your daily functioning,
Hmm.
where you're not being able to do other things. So
Hmm.
at any level you face these different symptoms, when you go to a professional support, they'll obviously give you a very safe space to hear you out, and I mean, I think listening does miracles. If you just have a space where you can talk about how you're feeling without
Hmm.
it being, sometimes what happens now when we tell our friends, they're like, no, no, you look beautiful. Like, why are you worrying? You look beautiful. But our mind does not want that. Our mind just wants, acha, I get where you're coming from. I know it's hard to feel this way. And tell me why you feel that way. What are maybe some incidents in the childhood or abhi that you've been facing all of this? Okay.
Hmm.
So, you have that very open conversation with the counselor or the therapist. And then again, in my practice, I don't immediately like to diagnose. Okay. Because what happens again now when we diagnose, it sets up a lot of labels for the individual, right? But yes, at some point of time, if it's very, very serious, then you understand whether you have a mental health condition, and then
Hmm.
there will be support based on that, right?
Hmm.
Even if it's not a condition, but you're still facing some of these things, your professional support is going to help you navigate through the challenge.
I think it's a very important point you put across was about a difference between talking to a friend and then talking to a therapist. I have, faced that situation. I've seen my friends, not seeking professional help because they're like, we have you and we can talk to you. Then why do we need a professional help? But again, they are still dealing with the situation they are dealing. So I think professional help at some point, whenever you feel is important, that is a very important point, and there is a difference between your friend and talking to a therapist. So amazing. So if I have to ask you about five little changes that a person who is dealing with the body image issue should bring in their lifestyle, in their daily lifestyle to 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 do it themselves.
Okay. Five little changes that they can do. Okay. So the first thing, like I mentioned, is change the media that you're being exposed to. Okay. So see on your Instagram, on your YouTube, on the movies, like what is the content you're following, right?
Hmm.
And try to little bit screen that.
Hmm.
Okay. Try to surround yourself with these pages and individuals who talk and promote body inclusivity. Okay. Same goes not only in your digital environment, but even in your social environment.
Hmm.
Second, find little habits that will help you appreciate what your body does beyond the way it looks. Okay, so just for example, I mean, movement is an example. But anything else, like maybe it can be playing an instrument, maybe it's painting, maybe it's making something with your hands, maybe it's cooking, whatever it is, right? Find a way where you can explore the capacity of your body and in little pieces. It can even be 10 minutes a day, right?
Hmm.
That also definitely helps. Okay. Three, I would say, mindfulness practices which help you anchor to the present moment is very, very important. Because again, when we're all up in our head, scientists like to call our brain the monkey mind. So we
Hmm.
are always thinking about the past or the future, and we're never in the present moment.
Hmm.
I feel 50% of our internal problems will be solved if, for example, right now I'm in the room and I'm talking to you and I'm only talking to you, right? I'm not, oh my God, what happened yesterday? What happened tomorrow?
Hmm.
But let's say when people are traveling and they have nothing to do now, then they're thinking about, oh, I have this task to do. Oh my God, I looked like this, right? Instead, if we can change our perspective, okay, I'm in the car right now
Hmm.
and I'm only in the car right now. So I'm very mindful. I'm present with the noises, with what I'm feeling, with what I'm touching, right? So
Hmm.
that's the quality of mindfulness, to be in the now. And it's so difficult. I've had so
Hmm.
many clients who just come to me like they're always overthinking. And really, the answer to that is mindfulness. Okay. So
Hmm.
mindfulness practices, again, the most common ones that people hear about is yes, breathing practices help a lot because your breath is always in the now, right? You're breathing every second. So if you can anchor to your breath, and then there are a lot of other breathing and mindfulness practices that you can try to inculcate. Even starting in the morning, I would recommend in the morning before you start your day, like 5 minutes a day. So it can really calm your mind.
Hmm.
That is also very, very important. Fourth thing that I would say is again being very like so I like to call it catch it, check it, change it. Okay, so this whole aspect of thought reframing, our cognitions and our thoughts are so important. So
Hmm.
catching your beliefs, identifying whether they are, and then do it in a written format or take professional support for that, right? That is also, very, very important, and keep reinforcing these new beliefs that you want to have. Okay. And the last thing is, it's very small, but like give yourself a hug. Always
Mhm.
we hug other people. Like if you can just put your hands on you and like hug yourself, and why hugging and cuddling is very helpful is it releases this sense of oxytocin, right? It's a feel good hormone. We can hug ourselves, right? Or you place, both your hands on your palms, both your palms on your chest, and like really sink in with your heartbeat. And maybe there's a small affirmation. I love myself just the way I am. I accept myself just the way I am. I give myself kindness. I give my body kindness. And when we can appreciate ourselves in this way, that's also something that can help.
Absolutely, and that's a very sweet advice. So, talking about advice, if I have to wrap up the conversation and ask you about one advice that you would like to give to all of our listeners, what would be that?
I would say that yes, I know the world is hard. Sometimes there are a lot of narratives and messagings that don't make us feel too good about ourselves, but try to find out the version of acceptance that works for you, right? So, your version of authenticity, of beauty, of ability, find out your definition of that, try to be true to that, right? And change takes time, but it's going to be so much more beautiful if you can find gratitude in what you already have, and then gratitude can spur change. Yeah. So, in a nutshell, like find the uniqueness in you. And I assure you that will open up the paths to something more beautiful.
Absolutely amazing, Shreya. It was lovely speaking with you today, and I think this conversation was helpful for me personally and would be helpful for everyone listening to us. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course, it was my pleasure, and I'm so happy we are having conversations around this. And thank you for being a wonderful host.
Thank you.